Hey, this is Tuesday, November 5th, and apparently we're talking about Sigmas. Except for the kid who just took his quiz, they're now up on Skyward. Those of you who have not turned in the Shadow Characters homework yet, it is now late, which means it did cost you 3 points. Tomorrow, you give up the right to sit in a chair, unless you can get it completed, but we'll get to that tomorrow for my 2 kids who don't have it done. What's up, kid who didn't pick up on the not talking hints?
You spelled something wrong.
Oh, man, that's so embarrassing. Way to bring it to my attention.
Can you stop running over my feet?
Point for having stuff on your desk.
Keep on my chair.
Everybody to hear me.
Put your feet under your desk.
Put your feet under your desk.
And we have I Learn Math tomorrow. It's going to be something just like the English one. You're going to have, I'm well aware, he's a special one. I know.
What?
About the same thing. So along with that, you'll have time tomorrow. You should not need headphones. You just need to bring the iPad. I recommend probably bringing your Shadow Club book to read afterwards, but that's up to you. I'm assuming it's probably going to take as much as the English one did, which means you'll have like an hour where you're just sitting there. Schedule for tomorrow, again, you're only going to have the 25 minutes with me. And then I think we get to go back to somewhat normal schedule after this week for at least a little bit.
Oh man.
Yes?
Do we take island?
Oh, that's past.
I think it might be January, sometime around there. I think this is your date.
Do this morning by 8 a.m.
And then make sure we have thing done for tomorrow, so I don't have to make you stand. You already spent the 3 points, but just trying to help you.
8 a.m. Who's up at 8
To you guys. Let's see, Shadow Club, we can get past this. Oh, your next reading checkpoint, if you want to write this on the little post-it note, is going to be page 130 is our next checkpoint we're going to get to.
Are you
And so we'll get to that one.
56 whole pages.
I know, oh my goodness. So with this one, again, we'll get a chance to read and talk and stuff this week, but you're probably going to have to do a little bit more reading on your own when we get to it. The quiz will be Monday. I thought about going for Friday, but I figured...
Yeah, Friday.
This
Friday.
No.
Next Friday.
Mr. Bucket, Tuesday.
I figured 2 quizzes in 1 week may be a bit much, but this way, worst case scenario, you have the weekend if you need to finish reading. Plus, we're now going to be getting to like the really, we've gotten past the boring part of the book. Now it's going to be,
It's pretty good about the pranks.
yeah, now we're getting into the breaks.
To the extra Diddy song.
The next part that's coming up.
Diddy
Covered all those. Gopher we did.
Gopher?
Oh, on this one. So on the quiz, this was the question where it said, who is it that convinces Jared to join the Shadow Club?
Austin.
And so on the quiz, I apologize. It counted a bunch of yours wrong because spelling issues or whatnot. I went in this morning and gave people credit if you had Austin Pace on there. So if you go back into it and take a look at it and stuff like that, we can try to help you out. Hi, what's up, Daniel?
So for the first one, I put Austin's face and it said no, so I put Rebecca for the second one.
Send me an email. That's fine.
But
I can fix it.
gotta,
That's why you send me an email.
but I gotta way better on the second
Jaden.
one.
What if you put Lost in?
That's fine. I counted that too. Annabelle.
So cute.
What is this backpack with boys? Is that a backpack or a person doing a backpack?
No, I think that should be his. This is his backpack. I think that's a coat. That was in the other hand.
Oh, no. Came like another kid.
No, it's not.
Why'd you got
I mean,
face
that's
knees?
another kid. That's another kid. That's
Well, I
just a
guess
random
he
kid
looks
falling.
like
And then we talked about Stonehenge, and we did Stonehenge. These people, so now that we're starting to go through and doing the pranky bits, we can, Jared, I have faith in you there. Cheryl, I have faith in you there. The other ones, we'll double check. Randall, what's he good at doing?
Swimming.
Who does he hate?
Drew Landers.
And we're going to get to Drew Landers' prank today.
That one's pretty good.
Jason, what is he good at?
Trumpet.
And what is it, or who does he hate?
Someone for us.
This guy.
And we'll talk about his in a moment. What is Abby good at?
Popular.
Be the
And
Sigma.
who does she not like?
Vera Dalton.
So, what did they do to Vera?
They share our dorky crushes.
And who does she have a crush on? He's shorter and younger, and apparently that was all it took for have the kids all go nuts on that one. And who does Karen not like? Or what's Karen good at?
Smart.
And the kid she doesn't like?
Tommy something.
I bet, Tommy Nichols. We're going to get to his today, which is probably the worst one because it involves killing someone's pet. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hey, those
What is Darren good at?
Basketball.
And the kid he doesn't like? We'll get to his prank also today. That was not as bad.
Why did you switch up the radio?
How's that not that bad?
With our thermos,
Thermos.
I told you it was foreshadowing when they talked about the king cobra in the thermos when they were talking about the mean things that happen. But there's not a king cobra. Those are surprisingly hard to find in America. So what did they put in the thermos instead? And that was where the garter snake came in.
I saw one. They're cute.
So it comes out and gets all yelly and screaming. And then with David Berger's trumpet. Now slime is bad, but what happens with the slime?
It gets everywhere.
And there's our
What the
shooting
diddy?
of the
That's
slime.
backwards.
That's back.
I didn't know somebody was.
It was not an easy picture to create. I had to find a picture of someone throwing up green slime.
What is that?
There's some weird pictures
Why
on
is he
there.
throwing up
Why is
on
that punching
somebody?
in front of him?
Then we got some there. Alright. Now we'll get a chance to get going.
Oh, I went to page 80.
Just use like a green.
You horrible child, you. Now, I have pictures to go along with these next pranks, but don't freak out. Because, well, one, so go to page 74.
Fuck that diddy.
And the part that says, the next trick, go you. Don't freak out. I'm going to show you a picture that goes along with this next prank.
Did he miss?
And so, I had to...
Lord, don't go like that.
Those are my toes.
Yeah, we know. Those are yours.
Hi, Annabelle.
That's really good until y'all.
In the gap where it says, the next trick by far. Okay. Yeah, I accidentally painted my toes really well. The next trick, by far, was the most dangerous. I was there because it was my turn to pull a prank. Cheryl and Randall came along to watch. It was midnight, Wednesday. We stood outside Drew Lander's open bedroom window. Maybe we ought to think of another trick, said Cheryl. The lights were out in the house, and we were sure Drew was asleep, but still... No way, said Randall. This is perfect. Perfect! We have to do it. Trust me. Drew can sleep through anything. Once, he fell asleep in math, and they couldn't wake him up. They had to call in the nurse. Cheryl turned to me. If you still want to do it, then I'm with you. I smiled and carefully removed the screen, then climbed in through the open window. Drew Lander's room was a mess. I mean, I've seen my room get pretty scary, but this was a pigsty. It was hard to walk without stepping on things that crunched. Drew slept under a mass of covers in his bed. We could hear him snoring more loudly than the roar of the filter on the huge fish aquarium in the corner. Look at this, whispered Randall, pointing to a whole row of swimming trophies on a shelf above the aquarium. Cheryl put her finger to her lips to shut him up. Drew did not hear a thing. He continued snoring as I very carefully rolled the covers away from his feet. He was wearing dirty socks, moving a fraction of an inch per second. I peeled back the socks until his feet, which smelled a little like chlorine and a little like vinegar, were sticking straight up at me. I reached my hand out to Cheryl, and she handed me the nail polish. When Drew woke up in the morning, just as we had thought, he didn't change his socks. And 15 hours after we had left his house, and incredibly embarrassed, Drew Landers had to explain to the entire swim team why his toenails were painted red. So there's his little grippers. So the next one, to explain this next prank, I have to explain to you how
Why is it so big?
how color blindness works. When I was a kid, I thought color blindness meant that you saw the world in black and white. That's not how color blindness works.
It's flip-flop.
Yeah, it means that there are certain colors that the cones in your eyes see as the same thing. There are two main types of color blindness. Yellow, blue, which means that your eyes can't tell the difference between a yellow and a blue, as they just look like they're the same shape. And the other one is red, green, where again, your eyes just see the red and green as the same shape.
Yeah.
So, in theory,
Girl,
if those of you who are just talking out loud over me, getting rid of your points, is always a bold move to make. But you should be able to look up here and then be able to see that there are dots in the little circles, and then you should be able to see the little numbers inside of there. If you can't see the little numbers inside of there, that probably means you have some level of the whole color blindness.
I can really
And
see.
there are degrees of color blindness, where it's not just like, for some people, like they just sort of get a little blurry together. Sometimes they can't see any of the red, green. So there might be like where you can see one of them, but not be able to see the other ones. But anyway, just thought I'd throw them up there so you guys have an idea. This plays a role in the next one, so you have to know how color blindness works. Eric Kilfoyle, the basketball star, was a sweater. Not the kind you wear, but the kind that drips all over the floor during a basketball game. Antiperspirant didn't help his sweating problem very much. But, as Darren told us, Eric would always roll on a sizable helping of antiperspirant under his arms before going out onto the court. The trick that Abby planned turned out to be much more complicated than it sounded, because not only did we have to switch antiperspirant bottles, but we also had to make sure that Eric never saw what he was coating his armpits with. In the end, we had to black out the locker room at the perfect moment, just to keep Eric and the rest of the basketball team in the dark as to what was going on. We were all there in the stands when the basketball team came out of the dark locker room and into the gym. Darren looked up from the floor and gave us the okay sign. The team wore their warm-ups to the layup drills. Finally, when the game was about to start, the warm-ups came off, revealing the team uniforms. Eric's was already beginning to look sweaty. It was a jump ball, and of course, Eric jumped. His arm went up, and in the excitement, nobody noticed Eric's underarms but the referee. The whistle dropped out of his mouth. The other team had possession of the ball, and Eric ran down the court, taking his position as center of the 2-1-2 zone. His arms went up, and that's when everyone else saw it. Fluorescent green sweat under his arms, soaking the sides of his shirt. Well, the captain of the other team dribbled the ball through the defense, then stopped dead when he saw Eric's little problem. "Hey, what's up with the armpits, dude?" said the kid with the ball. Now, when somebody says something about your armpits, you have to look. You can't help it, even if you're in the middle of a basketball game. Eric reached under his left arm and came out with a fluorescent green hand. The kid shot a basket over Eric's head to score. Had the joke ended there, we would have been more than satisfied. But it didn't. We didn't count on Eric being colorblind. "I'm bleeding!" cried Eric, stumbling around the court, showing everybody his very green hands. "I'm bleeding! I'm bleeding!" The game sort of stopped as everyone tried to figure out if this could be possible. If it was, Eric must have been an alien. "Help! I'm bleeding! I'm bleeding! Call a nurse!" And everyone was so confused and dumbfounded by this weird turn of events that the nurse was called immediately. Now, here's the one I think is the bad one. Those of you who have arachnophobia, you're not going to want to look at the screen.
Spider is. What time zone is that?
That's Rachel.
I was thinking about that.
Ricardo is scared of spiders.
The most obnoxious.
Ricardo, I'm gonna throw a spider at you.
Oh,
Ricardo, I'm gonna throw a spider at you. That's a movie.
Look at all these kids trying to be friends. Aren't their hearts full of love? That's why my kids are in therapy. The most obnoxious of our tricks was a doubleheader. It involved 2 kids, and one of them was lost in space. You see, Mr. Milburn, the science teacher, had a collection of animals in his classroom. Animals that ranged from gerbils to lizards. Tommy Nichols, the 9th grade's foremost brain, kept his pride and joy in Mr. Milburn's room. Octavia, his beloved pet tarantula. Sometime after lunch, Tommy noticed that Octavia was missing, but, try as he might, he could not seem to find her. She was not in her cage. She was not hiding in the bookshelf. It seemed she was nowhere in the room, and nobody could find her. Well, Lost in Space found her. Or should I say, she found him. I was particularly mad at Austin that day, so I couldn't wait to see the trick pulled off. You see, Austin had called me Gopher so much, everyone had started to call me that. I couldn't wait to get back at him. Anyway, it was a rainy day. Austin, as well as everyone else, came to school in a hooded jacket. In homeroom, at the end of the day, everyone put on their coats and waited for the bell to ring. Ralphie Sherman saw it first. "Hey, Austin, there's something in your hood." "Sure," said Austin, because nobody ever believed a word Ralphie said. "If there was something in my hood, would I do this?" And Austin, thinking himself pretty clever, put his hood on. When he pulled his hood off again, a tarantula was sitting on his head. "Ah!" he screamed, running around the room. "Get it off me! Get it off me!" He wouldn't touch it. The thing was sitting smack on the middle of his head, but he was too grossed out to actually touch it. Well, just like with the snake, everybody in the room, including Mrs. Marlowe, our homeroom teacher, began to scream. Meanwhile, Austin ran around the room with Tommy Nichols running behind him, crying, "Don't hurt her! Don't hurt Octavia! She doesn't bite! She's a good tarantula!" However, when a tarantula is doing push-ups on your scalp, you don't care how good it is, you just want it off. Watching Austin turn white as a ghost was the high point of my day. And then, as if it wasn't bad enough, Octavia got freaked out and tried to climb off. Unfortunately, the easiest way off of Austin's head was down the back of his shirt. Austin fell to the ground, shaking his shirt, but Octavia would not come out. She'd had enough for one day. Austin tore off his shirt, ripping out all the buttons, and Octavia went sailing across the room. When she landed, she wasted no time in racing across the floor for a place to hide. "Don't hurt her!" yelled Tommy Nichols. "She's tame! She's a domesticated spider!" But no one much cared. While most everyone stood on the tables, Octavia scampered around the room between the table legs until she finally met an untimely end under the heel of Richard Ferguson's shoe. Lost in Space sat on the floor in a daze, for once actually lost in space. Tommy Nichols had collapsed to his knees in tears, mourning his dearly departed spider. And Richard Ferguson threw his shoe into the wastepaper basket, choosing to walk home barefoot. So, of all of the pranks they did, that one is the one I think is the worst because it involves killing someone's pet, which I think is kind of a bad thing, given it may be a spider, but I still think it qualifies as sort of being a bad thing overall. And there I'll stop with you. Thank you to the 3 of you who let me charge you points for putting stuff on your desk while I was still reading. I appreciated
Who
it.
did that?
You know how kids are nowadays.
I was
Man.
bad, bro. We had to teach him all.
It's you.
Yeah, Danny.
bad.
Yeah.
Why you know my name, bro?
Yeah,
How many
Kendall.
discs do you have?
1, 4, 5.
Can
Because
I
I
put my
have
stuff on my desk?
a driver, 2 mids, and 2 putters.
What? We're a mid?
Not saying no. What?
You put golf?
Disc golf.
It's
It's like golf, but frisbees.
I play golf too.
Wait, then how,